This is CBC Here and Now.
We're very happy that he did find that the travel ban violates Section 6 of the Charter.
A violation, yes, but one a judge believes is justified. The province's travel ban isn't going anywhere.
Talk about a buzzkill.
We're going into, 3 years of legalization now, and it's still only one dispensary in this big town.
It's an hour in Central to go either way to get your cannabis legally.
Because of this strike, there's no cannabis retail in Central Newfoundland.
2020 wasn't for me or for anyone.
Grenfell campus sure is quiet, but some students, especially international students, have been here the whole time. We'll tell you what happened to them during this pandemic.
It changed everything for me, literally everything.
Big push of warm tropical air making an appearance as we head towards the weekend. We've got lots of rain on the way.
Welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes.
And I'm Peter Cowan. The travel ban is here to stay. It's our top story tonight. The ban was being challenged in Supreme Court in this province, but today the judge ruled the ban is justified to stop the spread of COVID-19. Here Now's Heather Gillis has more.
In a 137-page decision released this afternoon, Supreme Court Justice Donald Burridge ruled the province's travel ban infringes on Canadians' mobility rights under Section 6 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. However, he says it was justified and a reasonable measure to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in Newfoundland and Labrador.
This was my mother who I was extremely close to.
The case began after Kim Taylor's mother died on May 5th, a day after the province's travel ban took effect. 3 days later, Taylor, a Newfoundlander living in Halifax, was denied entry into the province to attend her mother's funeral. The travel ban only allowed residents, asymptomatic essential workers, and those with extenuating circumstances to enter the province. Taylor was later granted an exemption.
No other family should have to suffer what we went through.
And we are satisfied with the conclusion of the Section 6 breach.
Lawyer Rosellen Sullivan represented the Canadian Civil Liberties Association in the case. She views the decision as a partial victory because the judge made a new interpretation to the Charter, adding that Canadians have the right to remain in Canada and travel across provincial and territorial borders.
We're very happy that he did find that the travel ban violates Section 6 of the Charter. That was our reason for bringing the application in the first place, that no case had ever decided interprovincial travel. So we're very happy with that.
However, she's disappointed she wasn't allowed to argue against the increased power the province has to remove people or for search and seizure. Sullivan says this case is polarizing and has hit a nerve with the public, which she's called stressful.
I've gotten more nasty hate mail over this charter application than I have of any criminal defense file I've ever done.
Meanwhile, the judge said Taylor's right to liberty was not engaged.
The Civil Liberties Association is going to examine the decision before deciding whether to appeal. Meanwhile, Kim Taylor wouldn't comment in the media today before speaking with her lawyer. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
The province's health minister and chief medical officer of health are welcoming that court decision, and they say the restrictions may be with us for a long time. Here Now's Mark Quinn explains.
From our point of view, this wasn't something we wanted to do. It's something we felt we had to do. And it was done out of a desire to protect the health and well-being of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. It's gratifying that the court has validated that approach.
The travel ban has meant hardships for many people, but the health minister says it's also helped to limit the number of COVID-19 cases in this province.
As part of the package, if you look at Newfoundland and Labrador, we have one active case. And quite frankly, the rest of the country and maybe the rest of the world is looking at what we have been able to do. And it's because people have collaborated, cooperated, and followed public health advice.
So how long will the travel ban last? Haggie says the province's chief medical officer will decide that, and she doesn't have an answer yet.
We're constantly looking at the epidemiology here and elsewhere, with regard to this, most importantly elsewhere, and that determines our decision on that.
Haggie said the travel ban may not be lifted for some time to come.
I mean, we did say, and she did say right back at the beginning that, she couldn't see us moving away from a travel ban until we got pretty well down to life with a vaccine.
It's not clear when we'll line up for vaccines like we do for flu shots like these, but some medical experts say it's unlikely a vaccine will be widely available until well into next year. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
And an update on the House of Assembly. The House has now recessed until the government brings in a budget later this month. The legislature approved 2 months of government spending. That's down from the 3 months that the government was originally looking for. Well, some good news for rotational workers who work on Great Lakes ships. Earlier this week, we told you how workers like Eric Francis were told they have to do the full 14-day quarantine. They couldn't shorten it like other rotational workers. As recently as yesterday, the province blamed it on the federal government, saying those are the rules. But it's not. I asked Transport Canada, and here's what they told me. They said this order contains a specific exemption for essential marine personnel, crew members and workers who are essential in the marine transportation sector, to travel in and out of the country without the need to quarantine. Well, today the health minister had a very different message, saying workers can be released early after all.
You are regarded as a rotational worker. You should call 811 and you can have the COVID test between day 5 and 7. And if that is negative, then after day 7, you're good to go.
When was that change made? Because the workers that I've been speaking to were told by 811 that they do not qualify for that testing.
The information I have is that's been there for a little while, so I'm looking into how those dates match up. I can't give you the answer.
While in central Newfoundland, the Dominion strike is having far-reaching consequences. It means the area's only 2 cannabis stores are closed, leaving customers with few options and advocates pushing for a better system. Here Now's Garrett Berry explains.
We're going into, 3 years of legalization now? And it's still only 1 dispensary in this big town.
This is the site of a major buzzkill, a shut-down store with no alternatives.
Kind of ruins your weekend. You can't just drive to Gander and pick up a couple grams of weed for your Friday night.
And the further into Central you go, the further away it gets. Dominion had the only 2 retail licenses in Central Newfoundland. Now that those stores are closed, you're looking at a long drive. Here are the new closest options for the people of Lewisport. They can drive to Clarenville, or for a more scenic route, they could drive to Conn River. Each store is about 2 hours away.
And what that does is forces people into the gray market where they might not want to be.
You're not going to find a bigger enthusiast. He streams multiple times a week to consume and chat about cannabis. He says these closures are going to hurt.
Some people got out of the medicinal scene from doctors and stuff and just started going to the Dominion for their medicinal cannabis. Where are they getting it now?
You're supposed to go to the sanctioned government website, but there are other illegal sellers that seem to be doing well.
You wouldn't believe the number of people here that are saying, is there anywhere else they can go to besides Clarenville? I've talked to a lot of people that have mentioned a lot of places online that they're getting it from, and they're getting it really cheap.
Right.
Yes.
That's obviously not the government website.
Obviously not, no.
Her store sells all kinds of accessories, and she wanted to make the leap to cannabis retail, but found that for her small business, the numbers just didn't add up.
You had to have special types of locks and security, cameras in your store, certain locking cabinets to store. You had to have a plan in place for any wastage and what you would do with it and how you would dispose of it.
Now she's almost kicking herself, with a market hungry for product that no one can provide. Nora says it just goes to show that a different plan is needed.
Newfoundland reported $36 million in sales in legal cannabis. That's no small market right there. So in just going with the numbers, does that not show a need in our little island to have more of a proper structure for something like this?
Garrett Berry, CBC News, Lewisport.
Well, now to news from the courts. The details of an alleged sexual assault are being scrutinized once again in a St. John's courtroom. RNC officer Doug Snellgrove is being tried for the 2nd time. Today, a new jury heard a young woman's account of how the night unfolded. And a warning, the details may be disturbing and triggering for some people. Here Now's Malone Mullen reports.
A ceramic Starbucks mug gave Doug Snellgrove away. That's what Crown Counsel told the jury today at the sexual assault retrial of the RNC officer. A DNA sample from the seized mug matched DNA taken from the complainant's couch. The match was so close, there's a 1 in 70 quintillion chance it belonged to someone else. That couch is owned by a young woman we can't name. She told the jury she was 21 at the time of the alleged assault. She'd been dancing with friends at Velvet, a St. John's nightclub. She drank 5 coolers before she got there. A friend says she had another drink at the bar. When she left, she recalled seeing Snellgrove in his squad car. According to her testimony, he asked her if she needed a ride home. "I was highly intoxicated," she said. "I thought it would be safer to go with a police officer if he was asking." Back at her apartment, the woman says Snellgrove helped her in through a window. She unlocked the door and let him into her living room. Defense counsel established the two kissed. She recalls sitting down on a love seat, telling the jury she was too drunk to stand. The woman paused at this point in the witness box, overwhelmed with emotion. The next thing she knew, she says, Snellgrove was having sex with her. She can't recall whether or not she gave consent. She says she thought about reporting what happened to the RNC the next morning, but didn't. "Nobody would believe me," she told the court, "because I was a drunk girl with a police officer." It wasn't until weeks later, when she encountered a female RNC officer, that police first learned of the alleged assault. That led to Snellgrove's arrest and investigation. Testimony resumes Monday. Malone Mullen, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, firefighters and fish harvesters banded together to stop a burning boat from destroying other vessels and the Port Saunders Wharf last night. The Sally Catherine caught fire sometime around 7:30. By the time everyone arrived, the vessel was engulfed with flames. The boat was towed away from the dock to keep the fire from spreading, and as a result, only minor damage was done to the dock and nearby boats. But as you can see, the Sally Catherine is a total loss. The case is still being investigated, but police don't suspect arson. Well, thieves have hit the Irving near the turnoff to Bishop's Falls twice in 5 days. Police say both robberies have a similar pattern. According to the RCMP, the first happened just after midnight last Friday. The second robbery was around 1 in the morning on Tuesday. The suspect wore a mask, demanded money, and fled with cash both times. Police are looking for more information. Meanwhile, in Marystown, the RCMP arrested and charged a 26-year-old with stealing an SUV and driving drunk yesterday. Officers were apparently taking a report about the theft when a call came in about a dangerous driver in the Marystown Mall parking lot. Police tracked down the driver, who was on the highway just outside the community. A 21-year-old passenger was also charged with theft. Well, also in Marystown, this car fire. Police are calling the fire suspicious. They say it happened on Marine Drive around 2 in the morning on Tuesday. According to police, an explosion was heard before the fire. Apparently, the car had a flat tire and was parked in the area the day before. Police are investigating the cause of the fire and looking for tips.
Well, the MUN campus in Corner Brook is looking pretty vacant these days, but it's not totally empty. COVID has kept things pretty quiet. In-person classes stopped in March. But Colleen Connors found out that there are some international students staying put through the peak of the pandemic, and they're still there.
This visual arts student is getting ready to take a textiles course from her living room.
I've always seen my classes in studios where I could meet professors, where I could do my project with machinery and everything. Now it's opposite. I have to do everything in my chalet with but good part is our professors have worked so hard during summer to build up this whole curriculum where we can do projects while being at home.
Merchant is one of only a few students who lives on campus. Most rooms are empty. When the pandemic hit, the residence shut down and many students went home. But close to 100 international students were stranded here. Pakistan stopped allowing almost all international flights in March, so Merchant couldn't go home.
It changed everything for me, literally everything. It was so isolated and I couldn't meet anyone.
The university moved the students to isolated apartments.
So the university did have an emergency relief fund that was available to all students, not just international students, that they could apply for. It couldn't help with everything, but it definitely was some assistance. And we also helped our students try to connect with other community organizations. We always have a food bank on campus, and we bumped up the services available through our food bank over the last number of months as well.
Merchant took remote jobs with Student Services and the Association for New Canadians to pay her rent.
So beginning when we weren't allowed to move or meet anyone, that's when Student Services helped us with food bank. So we had options of food packages, and we just had, it was like no contact pickup. So we used to come near the campus and just get it. But then later, when things got better, there are my friends who have access to cars. So they took me through to groceries, and that's how I managed.
International enrollment has grown at Grenfell over the past couple of years. It's up now around 200 students. And Parsons says this year is no different. The pandemic isn't shrinking that number.
So students can be sitting pretty much anywhere in the world at their computer. Some of their classes will be happening live, so there will be live lectures still, classroom discussion on different topics. And also some will be offered not live. Students can do it at their own speed and at their own time.
Merchant misses her family, but is making the best of the online school year with the hopes the campus will fill up with students in 2021. If and when international students can cross the borders and return to learning on campus, the university says that they have a full plan in place to help them self-isolate and return safely. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, before we go to break, we have a short message to share with our Here and Now viewers. Some of you have noticed and asked, where's Anthony Germain?
Yeah, there are a few changes happening behind the scenes. Anthony's working on a new assignment, and, well, we'll let him tell you what's happening.
Now, you might be wondering where I've been for the last little while, and I've got some news to share with you about how my role is going to change on Here and Now. Now, I've really enjoyed covering politics in that place for the last couple of years, but that part of my job is going to change starting today. My wife has accepted a job in the Premier's office in her area of expertise, and that could appear to put me in a conflict of interest. And as you know from watching Here and Now over the years, conflict of interest, well, that can turn into a news story, and I just don't want to be that story. I can't allow my integrity, the integrity of the program, or the integrity of CBC Newfoundland and Labrador to come under question, and for that reason, I'm recusing myself from covering the Premier and the House of Assembly. Political coverage has always been a team effort on our show. I'm just not going to be part of that team. This doesn't mean that I'm going to stop doing stories that the government has to answer for. Our province is filled with people with important stories to tell and significant issues that they're trying to tackle, so I'm going to concentrate my efforts on those kinds of stories. I'm just not going to cover the people who work in that building anymore.
Saw some snow today in Lab West, and then we've got a big push of some warm tropical moisture moving in as we head through the next couple of days with some rainfall warnings already issued by Environment Canada. And then as we head into next week, we'll talk about the potential impacts of Hurricane Teddy. I'll have all those details and your full forecast coming up.
This weather forecast is brought to you by Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. Take the time to explore this fall. Learn more at stayhomeyear.ca.
Ashley is here now with a look at the weather forecast. And Ashley, it was a pretty warm but very windy day today.
Yeah, it's so much so that I had to hide behind a tree in order for my camera not to shake. Well, there it goes there. But yes, very windy this afternoon, and it is continuing now. Let's take a look at those top gusts across the province. Everywhere seeing anywhere from 60 to as much as 80 km/h wind gusts today, although it was quite mild this afternoon for most of us on the island, anywhere from 16 to 21 degrees. The warmest was through central. And then we've got that chilly air up through Labrador. Lab City, your high today, earlier today, was 6 degrees, and then that temperature dropped through the day. And we did see some flurries, and we're still seeing some on and off flurries. And there's that colder air in the blue, as you can see up through the Big Land. And then that warmer air across the island with some showers right now along the west coast. And those showers are going to continue to make their way towards central as we head through the evening hours, and eventually overnight through the east. We'll see that showers, and then you can see those clearing skies for the northern peninsula. Temperatures dipping into the single digits overnight. These winds are going to stay strong in the eastern portion of the island, and look at the temperature for St. John's overnight, 16 degrees, same for Marystown, and that's because we're in that southwesterly flow. But as those winds ease in the west, you're going to see those temperatures dip, along with Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 5 degrees, and Lab City, the potential for some flurries overnight again tonight, but your winds are going to stay strong. So southwesterlies upwards of about 50 km/h in northern portions of Labrador and exposed areas. Certainly along the coast, you could see wind gusts as high as 80 km/h tonight. Now, those clear skies and cool temperatures means a frost advisory in place for parts of the northern peninsula. That's for tonight, and then we'll talk about that rainfall warning. So anywhere from essentially the Avalon through to the interior is where we're looking at some heavy rain setting up. So we'll see those showers tonight, and that's going to set the stage. If I zoom out, you can see some of that moisture. This is where it's pulling it all from, and that's just going to continue. It's essentially going to stall over central and eastern Newfoundland as we head through the day tomorrow, which will mean that we're going to see some more humid air and lots of rain, which will be heavy at times. We will see the heaviest rain for eastern Avalon, or in the Avalon in general, as we head through Friday night into Saturday as well. So some of the models are pointing at, as good chunk of the models are pointing at over 100 millimeters from pretty much the Canaveral Peninsula through to the Bonavista Peninsula, including the Burin. Otherwise, a good chunk of central and eastern areas of the Avalon seeing anywhere from 50 to as much as 75 millimeters of rain. And again, that will fall through tonight and into Saturday afternoon. So temperatures tomorrow will be mild, and again, it's all because of those winds. So next to no wind on the west coast tomorrow, 5 to 10 km/h, but your temperatures will be into the teens, and then 20s, high teens, low 20s for eastern areas. So and those southwesterlies sticking around. So 30 to 50 km/h tomorrow. It will just be showers. You'll see the heaviest rain in eastern areas, like I said, as we head through the day on Saturday. Here's that rain I was talking about. That'll move off. Things will clear out in behind that. Looks like a pretty lovely Saturday for most of us. Maybe the chance of a few showers as we head through the overnight into Sunday morning. But again, a quiet weekend on tap at this point. We're looking at temperatures dropping, though, Saturday as that system pulls off and we get back into that northerly flow. The temperatures will drop quite dramatically for eastern areas. St. John's about down to 11 degrees, 12 in Corner Brook, and then we've got that potential for flurries sticking around for Lab City, sitting around 5 degrees. And then even into Sunday, temperatures will be sitting in the double digits, 10 degrees in St. John's as we head towards Corner Brook, and even up through Labrador, anywhere from 10 to as much as 14 degrees expected through the day on Sunday. Then we start talking about next week. So mentioned Hurricane Teddy yesterday, and now is strengthened to a Category 3 hurricane. and it's definitely something to keep an eye on. It looks like it'll affect Bermuda as a Category 3, maybe Category 2 hurricane on the heels of Paulette that just affected them, and then it makes it heads north. Now there is a good chance that somewhere in the Atlantic provinces we will see impacts of Hurricane Teddy. It is still 5 days out at this point, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on. Like I said, at this point, potential impacts for Halifax, or at least Nova Scotia, and then may head towards us in Newfoundland, Labrador. But at this point, we're just looking at some rain, and the timing of this will pretty much be Tuesday into Wednesday. So I do have that rain in the forecast for now, but again, lots of days to figure this out, to iron out what's going to happen, because tropical systems do take a little bit, it could change anytime from the next. So here's where we're sitting for the rest of the weekend, and then into the beginning of Monday. Note those temperatures will be sitting in the 10 to 11 degree range for a few days, and then we bump back up, and again, that's because some of that tropical air will move in. And then for central Newfoundland, Tuesday again, around 15 degrees at this point, but their overnight lows are still going to be sitting in those single digits. And then up through Labrador, a big push of some warmer air at this point, it looks like, for Sunday, or into Monday rather, 18 degrees, and then hanging around 13 degrees for parts of western Labrador. So once you get through the potential for some flurries through Saturday, the rest of the end of the weekend and the beginning of next week actually looks pretty lovely. So I wanted to share this lovely shot of a calm pond on Random Island. Bonnie Lowe sent us this lovely shot. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Well, there's a shadow over the world of theater these days, but starting tonight, you can see a brand new play where the shadows come to life. It's called The Kraken, and it's performed with shadow puppets outside the Reed Theatre at Memorial University. Here now, Zach Gowdy dropped by last night's rehearsal.
The Kraken is more ravenous than the hungriest hippo, bigger than the biggest blue whale.
Well, we're in a shadow puppet play called The Kraken, and it's a play about a young girl who overcomes the odds in her town and befriends a giant monster. It's an ooky spooky tale of fun and love.
Come over here, the laddie! Mind the pickle juice, I was in the pickle mines all day.
It's really interesting. There's a whole person in here, and somehow you need to convey it without the use of the other two dimensions as well. So it's kind of focused, it's almost meditative in a way, because you can kind of really zone in on your movements and really not think about anything else, and in the dark with the shadows, it's wonderful.
I've realized that it's kind of like working in film, where you have to be really small, because the minuscule movements that we make are projected on this massive wall. They're a lot bigger than we really intend. It's challenging because your arm gets really tired every now and then, so not doing this is really, really tough. You wouldn't think that, just holding a little tiny light puppet like this. However, those movements are so tiny, so it's really tough every now and then to keep your hands still.
So, you get the sense of the dory, and we just kind of very subtly get him to move across the screen. And we always try to, bring him to life a little bit, but it's a very subtle art. I'm Jamie Skidmore, and I'm the director and designer of The Kraken. We had planned on doing it indoors. That was always our original plan, but when COVID hit, we had to think outside the box. So we brought it outside, we put it on a big wall, and I think with our little puppets, becoming huge puppets on the wall behind us, and the shapes and the movement, I think it's going to be really magical. So people have two options. They can either come in their car and have the driving experience. We're only having 11 cars in the lot. And then you can also bring your own lawn chair, and you can sit on the lawn. Bring a blanket, you can sit on the ground, bring a lawn chair, bring some hot chocolate, and you'll have a great time.
And if you don't, you're going to have to answer to my best friend.
We're playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 17th through the 20th of September at 8:30 p.m. And you can get tickets at kraken.eventbrite.ca.
Well, the pandemic is presenting all kinds of challenges in the school system this year. One big one, how to feed hundreds of students. Coming up, we'll speak with the School Lunch Association about how they're operating this year.
And speaking of school, we had so many back-to-school photos that you wanted to share with us, and we thought we'd share them with you throughout the show. I know we're now about 2 weeks in, but come on, look at these back-to-school smiles. They're too great not to share.
School life has been all about adapting to the new COVID challenges, and the same goes for the school lunch program. That service fills the bellies of students who would otherwise go hungry during the day. This afternoon, I spoke with the executive director of the School Lunch Association about some of the challenges they face this year.
We've been fortunate enough to have visited 35 different schools over the last 2 weeks, and we've been able to devise a bit of a hybrid kind of mishmash of a plan, a little bit different in each site, but we've been able to come up with a safe plan for 35 schools in consultation with the administration to service children in our program.
How are things changing this year compared to years past?
Well, I guess previously you would see 200 children, could be 300, could be 400 children in a cafeteria setting. In this particular year, most children will be eating in their classrooms. So what that means is a pretty heavy flow of volume of children that will be coming down a hallway, collecting a food tray, and then trying to return to their classroom. So the amount of time it will take to serve could very well be a bit longer. And then the capacity in which cafeterias can operate in is certainly dropped as well, about 50%. So some schools will have 50% of the children eating in cafeteria, and then they'll have the other children eating in their classrooms. It could be a staggered lunch system. So we've been able to develop a bit of a hybrid model on every other site, and each site certainly is unique with its physical layout, presenting challenges, one-way flow of traffic. Some hallways are wide enough to accommodate a two-way flow of traffic. So we have some challenges.
So will you be able to service the same number of students, the same number of schools this year that you normally service?
Historically, we're serving around 6,300 meals a day, and that could go up and down. So that would be across 36 schools. This year we're expanding to Gander, which would be 37. However, we have a challenge now with 2 schools in particular that we don't quite have a service plan yet, but I'm confident we'll get there. Unfortunately, right now, St. Peter's Primary in Mount Pearl, as well as Holy Trinity in Torbay, those 2 buildings, given the age of the school children, the sheer population, the volume, the physical layout, the kitchen facility, those sites present a logistical challenge right now, but we are working directly with the administration, as well as the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District, to devise a safe plan in which we feel we can operate and service those schools.
What specifically sets it apart from the other schools in terms of the logistics?
Well, I guess in most of the schools in which we operate, there's a K-6 kind of a model, if you will. So you can imagine that kindergartens may have a challenge taking a hot tray of food down a long corridor or up a flight of stairs. In some schools where it's all one level, it's easier achievable. St. Peter's Primary, for example, has over 200 or just about 200 kindergarten children alone. So you can imagine we can't ferry them all into the cafeteria due to the size and nature and the cohorting. And as well, we can't really expect and anticipate that 200 kids can walk down a hallway with a hot tray of food, and then somehow we'd serve another couple hundred kids within a 45-minute time window. So we're trying to see if we can come up with a model, if it's a delivery system. The challenges that presented with that is just the staffing involved. I mean, you can imagine in a 45-minute window serving 500 children a lunch, you'd need a small army to start delivering meals. So we'll get a good sense of how this rolls out in all of our other schools, and at the same time, we'll simultaneously be working with the district and the administration to develop a plan for those 2 schools.
How many students really rely on these meals every day?
Well, for some of these children, it may very well be the only meal they eat in the run of a day. I have to say it is unfortunate, but I have had conversations with administrators in various schools throughout the city and surrounding areas around the Northeast Avalon. And there's children right now, you can imagine, historically they'd be going to a cafeteria, and there'd be a couple hundred of them, and you may not pick up on if little Jimmy or Bobby or Susie has a meal in front of them. Now, when the bell rings and they're all in the classroom, we are unfortunately seeing some children simply with their arms folded. So we know our program is a huge need for our program in these schools. We operate on a pay-what-you-can model. So regardless of your family's financial situation, your children can still avail of our program. So there is a great need out there, and unfortunately with some of the socioeconomics now we're experiencing in the economy as a whole, the need this year is even greater.
While sticking with schools, some confusion this week from parents who say they're getting mixed messages on when to keep their kids home. So far, parents have been told that children with 2 or more COVID-19 symptoms should stay home, but some parents are saying schools are saying 1 symptom is too many. Well, hopefully we can give you a little bit of clarity. Here's Dr. Janice Fitzgerald with a guide for parents.
Our screening tool asks for 2 or more new or worsening symptoms. So if this is a symptom that your child routinely has because they have allergies or they have a cough because they have asthma, and that's something that they routinely have, then that's not really what we're talking about. It's new or suddenly worsening symptoms. So 2 of those, then they should stay home. And what we've recommended is that they need to stay home until 24 hours after their symptoms have resolved. Many people will contact 811 or do the self-assessment through 811 and be advised to get a test done. That may be, they may have the results of that test back by the time they go back to school, but it's certainly 24 hours after symptoms resolve.
Since late June, we've been at alert level 2 in Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, a few weeks back, Health Minister John Haggie hinted that there soon could be a timeline to take us to alert level 1, when it would happen and what it could mean. Well, at today's briefing, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald says, unfortunately, we're nowhere near that.
So alert level 1 is, we're not anywhere close to alert level 1. What we're talking about with that would be, a significant reduction in COVID spread, not just here in the province, but in the country and perhaps around the world. We're not, much of the world is still seeing increases in COVID in their epidemiology, and I don't think we're anywhere close to looking at moving into a level 1 where we would, consider larger mass gatherings or consider more travel or things like that. We're certainly not there at this point.
Well, it could be even more difficult for Canadians to protect themselves against COVID-19 once the colder weather sets in. Jayla Bernstein shows us how people are thinking ahead about socializing safely when the temperature drops.
The warm September weather has many enjoying the outdoors, but what happens when temperatures start to drop and visits like this are no longer possible?
I think a lot of us are starting to think about it now and psychologically preparing ourselves. What are we prepared to do? And at 71, I don't want to take any chances going indoors.
Play a puzzle, you read a book, you chat on the phone, look at TV, find a way to busy your brain,
As COVID cases rise, there's also Thanksgiving to consider. Those large traditional indoor family dinners just won't be safe.
And it's not going to be a popular choice, but I think the best thing you can do is, Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, try to find ways where you can still celebrate, but to do so safely.
She says if you really want to get together with family for the holiday, outside is better if you follow guidelines.
Even if you're gathering outside, if you're going to be hugging each other and high-fiving each other, then, that doesn't really reduce your risk. But if you're going to sit on the patio and still maintain that 6 feet distance and wear a mask when you're not eating, and if you are making food available, making sure that the utensils that you're using aren't being shared and that each person has their own little prepackaged food situation going on, I think that would probably be a safer way to still socialize.
People have been getting creative when it comes to trying to find ways to minimize risk but still see friends and family and keeping it outside even as the cold weather approaches. Places like Home Depot say they've seen an increase in sales for outdoor fire pits and heaters for patios. She says they'll do winter picnics outdoors on the patio. She says cold weather doesn't mean they have to stay isolated inside. It just means you need to add a few more layers before going out. Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Montreal.
Arlene Westervelt died 4 years ago. The 56-year-old was canoeing with her husband on Okanagan Lake in BC. Now, he says it was an accident. Arlene's family doesn't believe him. Last April, nearly 3 years after her death, Arlene's husband was charged with second-degree murder. But just 2 months ago, that case came to a grinding halt. Here's reporter Janice Johnston.
Today should have been the start of a 5-week preliminary hearing into the death of 56-year-old Arlene Westervelt. Instead, her friends and family gathered at the Kelowna courthouse, still looking for justice.
An accused murderer should not get a hall pass. And if he does, we need to know why.
The public health nurse was on Okanagan Lake in June 2016 with her husband of nearly 30 years, Bert. He claimed she reached for a bottle of water and accidentally tipped the canoe.
He said she disappeared into the lake and was gone. We don't believe it. We have never believed that. On June 26th, my beautiful sister lost her life under very suspicious circumstances.
3 years later, RCMP charged Bert Westervelt with second-degree murder. But 2 months ago, without warning, the Crown stayed the charge.
We were given no explanation except that the case no longer met a substantial likelihood of conviction.
Today, we are asking one simple question. What happened to dismantle this prosecution?
The accused lawyer was tight-lipped when he spoke to CBC News.
I can say evidence was supportive of the fact that Mr. Westervelt did not kill his wife.
The victim's family has hired an Edmonton lawyer to help them lobby for answers. In a letter sent to BC's Attorney General, the lawyer states that Arlene told her sister-in-law just before she died that she planned to leave and divorce the accused. The family is also trying to obtain the autopsy report. The cause of death remains shrouded in secrecy. Hennig hopes going public with her concerns will pressure the Crown.
We haven't seen any justice. We are in the dark.
Janice Johnson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, for decades, nonprofit housing organizations have been providing homes for Indigenous people in cities and towns across the country. But as their buildings aged, many of those organizations struggled to find funding to fix them. Now, the federal National Housing Strategy could be a chance for a reset. Shayna Luck has the story.
Patty Doyle Bedwell remembers well the years she spent in subsidized housing, fighting with her landlord over mold and a leaky sink.
It's like you're not worthy of anything. That was the way I felt all the time.
Today, she's a tenured professor at Dalhousie University. But 30 years ago, she was a broke student living in this apartment building in Halifax, owned by a nonprofit Indigenous housing organization. She was shocked to learn recently Taiwak Housing's tenants are still facing the same conditions.
And there was mold again, water leakages again, holes in the floor again. And that was the same way that my apartment was.
Back then, the federal government was subsidizing the creation of small urban Indigenous housing providers, including Taiwak. 104 are still in existence, running hundreds of housing projects across the country. Taiwak has started repairs, using money flowing from Ottawa's National Housing Strategy. $638 million has been set aside for urban Indigenous housing. But Taiwak's leader says that for the buildings to remain in good repair, they're working on a long-term strategy.
So it's important to have a short and long-term strategy in place to ensure that it is going to be sustainable. And let's take a look at it and see where we are. Whether it's 1 year, 2 year, or 5 year down the road. But if it isn't, then what do we need to do to make those changes?
Housing advocates such as Claudia Yan agree that the nonprofits need a long-term plan.
So what we are seeing is really that the nonprofits were depleting their stock over many years, and as we know, the lifespan of material in a unit is traditionally 25 years, just from windows, heating systems, roofing. So this is really that we reached that breaking point.
If a sustainable model isn't found, advocates say another generation may end up living in the same broken buildings. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
A dilapidated home in Detroit has turned out to be a better investment than expected. A pair of business partners bought the house with plans to fix it up and sell it. As they were preparing, they discovered a treasure trove of art. The house had been sitting empty for years and was badly water damaged, but hidden in the garage, mixed in among papers and trash, the new owners uncovered at least 40 original signed prints by renowned Inuit artists from Nunavut. While some of the prints are damaged with mold, rips, and stains, most can be salvaged. A Detroit gallery owner is looking them over and plans to exhibit the collection.
A few more back-to-school photos here that we wanted to share with you. Stay tuned. Coming up after the break, we'll get an idea of what tomorrow's school forecast looks like.
Ashley is back with your weather recap. So Ashley, the rain moves in tonight.
It does. Yeah, we're going to start to see some showers make their way across the island as we head through the overnight tonight, and then set the stage for some heavy rain as we head through Friday, certainly into Saturday as well. And it's looking like areas from the Conegra Peninsula through to Bonavista Peninsula, including Burin, is looking at anywhere, you know, upwards of 100+ millimeters of rain. Otherwise, a good chunk of the eastern, the Avalon rather, through to central is looking at anywhere from 50 to 80 millimeters of rain. So certainly a big chunk of rain on the way. And then we've got those cooler temperatures up through Labrador. So you in Lab West can look forward to the chance of a few more flurries as we head through the next couple of days.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, what a way to start a Friday. It is going to be a wet one.
She used the F word and everything.
Yeah.
Flurries.
Oh.
I'm not ready for that, but...
Me neither. Well, I'll just take the rain for now.
That's it for us. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.